another exciting journey as we explore this avenue of the Seeker. Today we are exploring the second stage on the inner path of alchemy. Last time we reduced our consciousness to ashes, or spirit gave us a wake-up call by smacking us over the head with life events that seemed to be out of our control, that pulverized our ego. Either way, we were left with the ashes of what previously defined us. The symbol for this step of alchemy looks like a womb and a drop of water. Here, the statement from the Emerald Tablet is, its mother is the moon. If you've been watching my videos on the tarot card keys, you might have guessed this already. This step involves water. The moon is synonymous with water. Science has proven that it is the magnetic pull of the moon that controls the tides of the sea, and has an effect on our physical body that can be up to 75% of water, depending on our body fat percentage. Here is how Dennis William Huck describes the stage. The ashes from calcification are dissolved into water or acid. Alchemists saw this as the ashes returning to their original state. This is a return to innocence, a return to the womb for rebirth. Paul Foster Case gives this warning: do not congeal into stone as hard as glass or crystal, which melts only by fusion, but so that the substance will melt again like wax without blast. Here we may be tempted to return back to our old familiar ways and habits, especially if we didn't go through the process of calcification on purpose. Oftentimes, we don't know how to live our lives without processing everything through an egoic, crystallized paradigm. Instead, we need to dissolve the remnants of our old rigid beliefs and any part of the ego that remains. The good news is that the heat has been turned down at this point and it's being balanced by water. The chemical process that represents the stage is a bain-marie, which is basically a double boiler. A pot is filled with water and brought to a boil. Then a beaker with ashes and water is placed into the pot of boiling water. This causes the remnants to dissolve further. In the description box below, you'll find a link to a YouTube video with chocolate being melted using this process. If you've ever used melted chocolate in baking, you know that you need to get that chocolate into the dessert you're making right away, or it will revert right back to its solid state, just as Paul Foster Case warned us about during this phase. And you'll have to go through the process of melting it again. I don't know about you, but I don't want to go through another dark night of the soul. I prefer to learn my lesson and have a flexible mind. Here, the water represents our emotions. Once we let go of our egoic linear thinking process, the barriers we created to close off our emotions break open. We need to learn how to flow with the feelings instead of repressing them. Dennis William Huck explains it this way. This might lead to the individual being overwhelmed by wordless impressions and strange feelings, so that you feel you are floating aimlessly in a giant sea. But remember, this is only temporary. Take a look at this picture of a beaker immersed in the bain-marie. Notice how it almost seems to float in the pot? Paul Foster Case explains that it is when we are working with our emotions that we start to hear the still, small voice of intuition. Our dreams hold important subconscious knowledge about health, life events, and relationships that the ego refused to acknowledge. Paul Foster Case says that we also learn to use imagination to change our emotional reaction to experiences by paying attention to our inner voice of intuition. As our emotional reactions to experiences change, it affects how the glands in our bodies function. The result of the work at this stage is that we start to realize the spiritual identity of all things, releasing us from attachments and repulsion. This also stirs up the memory of our soul because everything we are learning about the absolute unbounded oneness and how it exists in all things is something that the subconscious has always known. We just walled ourselves off from the memory when we blocked out our emotions with our egoic paradigm that was focused on physical matter reality. From all of this, I'd say that this stage is about learning how to have a dialogue with your higher self. Your higher self resides within the subconscious. Through dreams and intuition, we can start working with our subconscious to identify the remaining emotional and mental blocks that we have and dissolve them. This stage of the process can take a while because we will find here really stubborn blocks. I've been working on the remnants of this stage for about 3 years. Of course, I didn't consciously realize that it was an actual step along the path of the seeker because I never studied alchemy in depth until now. I discovered that my emotions were the key to intuition on my own. So doing this research for this video has been a huge validation for me. Well, for today, our time exploring this avenue of the Seeker has come to an end. But have no fear, we have many more wonderful adventures ahead of us. Thank you, brave soul, for joining me.